The story of the GATE program, which stands for Gifted and Talented Enrichment Program, has its roots in the 1940s. It's believed that the peak of testing occurred during the 1970s to the 1980s, possibly even as late as the 1990s. During this period, children across the United States were subjected to government-sponsored testing at their schools. These children, now adults, recall being abruptly removed from their regular classes without any explanation or parental consent. The term gifted was used as a reassurance, but no one ever provided a detailed explanation of the program's broader purpose. Parents who became aware of the program were only told that their children were being evaluated for their exceptional academic potential. However, the staff never explained these procedures clearly, and they shared few, if any, records with parents. Official narratives from the CIA claim that gifted programs were designed to support talented students and provide enrichment. However, first-hand stories paint a different picture. These stories describe a program that aimed to push the boundaries of human intellect and even explore astral travel. The lack of information surrounding the program is particularly unsettling, considering the number of schools that participated across the United States. This suggests that the government might be attempting to suppress the truth. Typically, an unfamiliar person would enter the classroom and conduct a comprehensive test for the entire class. Based on the results, certain children were identified as possessing special abilities. These children were then taken through quiet hallways and often found themselves in secluded areas of the school or portable classrooms. Stories shared on platforms like X and TikTok describe rooms with completely covered windows, malfunctioning clocks, and an unsettling clinical stillness that deviated from the usual school environment. Inside these rooms, the children encountered staff members who were not their regular teachers, even though they do recall their own teachers initially administering the tests and identifying their special abilities. While the protocols varied across different regions, certain aspects remained consistent throughout the years, despite the different decades and states involved. One of the most frequently reported memories involved heavy over-ear headphones connected to a simple device with a single response button. The instruction was consistently the same: press a button when you hear the tone. Over time, the tones became increasingly strange. Some were painfully loud, while others seemed to be positioned differently in each ear. In certain sessions, the instructions were for the children to predict which ear would receive the sound, as if the aim was not merely to react, but to expect the sound. Many of these children recall the adults leaving the room entirely while the testing continued. They were left alone with the tones, the blinking lights, and were expected to comply. There were also other recurring elements. Students were lined up and given a thick pink liquid to swish and spit into metal basins, described as fluoride treatments. Others received chalky pink drinks or tablets, and nurses instructed them to chew and swallow them while they diligently took notes. Some victims say they were made to wear elastic caps attached to wires, likely EEG-style sensors, which collected data on their brain activity. Academically, teachers often assigned these children special tasks that deviated from the typical school curriculum. They engaged in logic puzzles, decoded symbols, used Zener cards to predict the shapes in ESP testing, and did testing on remote viewing and completed tasks under tight time constraints. They quietly introduced some students to early programming exercises, especially simple turtle graphics activities, which improved their pattern logic and sequencing skills. Many of these assignments were never graded and were instead considered outside the regular curriculum. Observation was another constant theme. Children often worked facing mirrored windows, which they later realized were probably two-way mirrors used to observe them as they did the assignments. Some claim they attended alternate campuses, often located near military or research facilities. The program also seems to intersect with significant life events. A substantial number of participants recall having experienced serious accidents, medical traumas, or near-death incidents before being selected. Whether this was coincidental or a criterion, the pattern seems to recur. Adults that claim they underwent this kind of testing describe unusual experiences later in life, such as unexplained sensitivity to electronics, which would often malfunction, as well as an overwhelming emotional detachment. Then, without warning, the testing ended. The equipment vanished from the schools, and the rooms were left empty. Life resumed its course, and the memories faded like a dream. Decades later, conversations resurfaced through online forums, message threads, and social media where people began sharing their experiences publicly. This is how many adults discovered uncanny similarities. The data collected about them remains largely inaccessible. No public documentation provides explanations for why specific children were chosen. The lingering question is not whether the program existed. There's no way this was merely a coincidence. The real question is what it was truly designed to measure. The truth lies somewhere between memory and institutional denial. The individuals who experienced it are left to bravely piece together fragments of their childhood, reconstructing meaning from details that were never meant to be questioned. Until these answers emerge, the lingering echo of a system that identified certain minds, isolated them, tested their limits, and then released them back into the world, remains. The newly resurfacing of memories is not because they were fictional or this is a fad, but because time has finally allowed victims to come together to compare notes. For the first time in almost a century after the program began, the story gets the much-needed sunshine it deserves.